Frank, I didn't want to put you on the spot too much. I suspect you were planning more to listen than to talk, but if you'd like to give a little quick summary on who you are and where we met and what the study is, this would have been the work that I assume you're still doing, the work that you did when we met at the Sustainable Water Resources Roundtable, which is part of the Advisory Committee on Water Information. Folks at home, which advises the federal government on, brings together public-private researchers, interests that use federal water information. So there's so many different federal agencies that deal with collecting data, that deal with producing models and guidelines and all sorts of things related to water. That there was an interest in finding out from people in the water community about how best to develop those federal programs. And so that's kind of a very short background on ACWI. And there's a groundwater committee that's really technical on groundwater, and there's a climate committee very technical on climate, and all these other committees. And then there's this funky little committee called the Sustainable Water Resources Roundtable, which gets into what is sustainability and how do you develop data and tools and information and collaborative processes and whatnot that support sustainability in water. And one of the issues that has come up a number of times, and I'm on the planning committee for that, a number of times, is water in the military and water in security. So Frank, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and throw you up on the screen, and if you want to say a little something about what LMI is and who you are and what's going on with the Bootprint.
Sure, my pleasure. My name is Frank Reilly. I work for LMI, which used to stand for Logistics Management Institute, but now we're branded, so it just LMI stands for just LMI. But we're a nonprofit think tank around DC. And we mainly have government clients, but our mission is really good government. So we have private clients as well. If we can sort of hint that what we're doing for them will help the government in some way. And what Kat's talking about is some work that we did for the Army Environmental Policy Institute about the water footprint. I'm not sure if you folks are all familiar with water footprint, but it's like a carbon footprint, only water. How much water does it take to do something, from thinking about it till throwing it away? And so we did a water footprint for the entire Army's operation system. And it was a huge number. How many gallons? It turned out to be like 478 billion gallons of water a year for the Army to do all of its operations. And what that did for the Army was convince leaders in the Army that water was not just a commodity, but necessary capability for the Army. And it also set up so that we're interested now in what we're doing now is a bunch of sort of vulnerability assessments for individual bits of things that the Army cares about, like, Humvee or 5.56 millimeter ammunition or Stryker fighting vehicle or uniforms or MREs. And that's the project that we're working on right now. I'd love to talk about it, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this call today because it's a birthday party.
Yay! Thank you for the reminder. I do hope that we can come back sometime when we can prepare for this a little more. And the funny thing is with my contact list, I never have any idea who's going to show up to the party, which is fun. But there's so much going on with the Department of Defense and various ways of thinking about water as a security issue. And frankly, some of the things that we talked about when I think Sustainable Water Resources Roundtable, we have had panels on water and military just about every meeting for the past several meetings, and everything from if I'm not mistaken, the highest casualties on the front are from convoys for fuel and water. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah. And then the work that you guys are doing, also looking at the water that goes into supplying the military, whether that's at the front or in bases here in the U.S. That we can't operate a military if we don't have the equipment to go with that, to make the uniforms, to make the ammunition, to make everything else, and the water that's required for that. So if suddenly we have a loss of water supply, eventually we lose all the other things that are made using that water. Is that kind of what you guys were finding?
Well, that's right. Water turns out to be a big thing. For our recent adventures in the sandbox, 100% of the water was being supplied as bottled water, even though the military has good capability for reverse osmosis. And so that's the kinds of, what water, how much water in the supply chain, and what we're doing now is, so where are the parts of the widget made, and are any of them being made someplace where water availability might impede the supply of a critical part. And so that's a report we'll probably have done, we are supposed to have done this year. And I'm really excited about that stuff. We're basically doing a water risk assessment for supply chain.
Right. And looking at water supply, it's not just about drought. I mean, we've just had another hurricane with Hurricane Arthur hitting everybody during their 4th of July weekend festivities. And, a major weather event like that can also knock out water supplies, not just in the drought-prone regions of the country.
Well, that's true. We're assessing, water supply difficulties, as well as flood difficulties, drought difficulties, climate change-induced sea level rise, and weather change difficulties. And I'll give you a specific example. The 5.56 millimeter ammunition. It's the most shot bullet that there is. All of the propellant for that is made at one particular plant that is located in a spot where Gulf hurricanes would be a bad thing. And as a matter of fact, when Pensacola recently had the 24 inches of rain in 10 hours, earlier this spring, no propellant was manufactured those days. So it's a real thing right now for really important pieces of material.
Yeah, not just a think tanky thing. That
That's
people
right.
are starting to get it. Right? Did you have any final thoughts as a newcomer to the WaterCitizen news experience?
I do. I think this meeting, I think you're a little bit nervous about how this technology works for us, but I think, frequency of doing it is worth it. I participate in like a couple of regular calls, and that's just plain old telephone call. And, doing it is better than not doing it. And so a chance to meet together with other people that spell water with a capital W is a really good thing. I will join if you have something.